Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here. We have several stakes races up in Northern California on Saturday at Golden Gate Fields. The headliner, though, on that card comes in race number 9. It is a Grade 3 race over 1 mile on the turf course there. The $250,000 San Francisco Mile. It's for older horses. We have a full gate of 14 horses entered for this race. Let's take a look at the field right now. Just a wide open race, and I guess not an easy one to make the morning line for. To be sure, the morning line favorite, number 4, Vanzi, is 4-1 on the morning line. Just a horse who makes a lot of sense in this race. One of several shipping up from Southern California to run in the San Francisco Mile. On the far outside, number 14, a recent import from France, Ecrivan for Richard Mandela. That horse is 9-2 on the morning line, second off the layoff in this spot, but he has a tough post to overcome. A couple of other horses in this race who you feel like could take money. Number 11, certainly Restrained Vengeance, who many people will remember from last year's Breeders' Cup Mile on the dirt, where he finished third behind Life Is Good. This horse also has plenty of turf form to consider in a race like this one. Both the number 6 and 7, Evening Sun and Tiz Plus, 2 more horses coming up from Southern California. They just finished close together in an allowance race down there. They are both pegged at 6-1 on the morning line. Any one of these horses could certainly have cases made for them. There are also several other horses who could be interested in here, including a couple of locals who going to have to maybe up their game a little bit in the face of these shippers coming up for this race. But that is far from impossible in here. A race that's just kind of feels like it's wide open. And of course, in a big field like this one, trips will probably be very important. Let's start off in that regard by taking a look at the Timeform US pace projector. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. The pace projector has number 7, Tiz Plus, up there on the lead at the pace call in this race. We'll see if they ride him that way again. In his most recent start down there at Santa Anita Park, they did put him on the early lead, and he went a pretty solid pace that day also. But his overall form, he's not really a horse that is often ridden that way. He's perfectly capable of sitting off of someone else and still delivering a good performance. So we'll see if they get aggressive with him again. They could certainly do that. They also have the number 5, a bigger long shot in here, Jimmy Blue Jeans. They have him up close to the pace. Vanzi, the number 4, who just set a really nice trip in winning his last race. He has tactical speed. He's expected to be, within range of this pace as well. We'll see how that all plays out. But again, trips do feel like they're going to be very important in this race. We have such a big field here. Let's just sort of try to run through it really quickly, maybe take a touch on all of the runners in some regard if we can. The number 1 is Freeport Joe. He's one of the local horses. He's going to be a big price in this race. He's just a horse who I feel like it's pretty hard to make any kind of serious case for in here. His most recent race, they came back to turf with him. Now, that's a race where I feel like you want to give him the benefit of the doubt. It says taken up start. I don't even know if there was any real issue there. To me, it was just more a case of his rider just grabbing a hold of this horse at the break for some reason. This is a horse who, in all of his turf starts, they just take him all the way back off the pace. They did it last time, and it really worked against him in a race that was one wire to wire. The pace wasn't fast. Freeport Joe was wide all the way in that race, and he actually ran pretty well in there to be 5th, beaten less than 3 lengths. It's still not the kind of effort that makes him a major contender in here. He's 1 for 6 on turf in his career so far. And, none of those races, they're not terrible, but they don't really give him a serious chance in this race. He's going to be a big price. We'll see if he can get the right kind of trip and maybe get a piece of it. Number 2, Indian Peak. He's one of the Southern California shippers in this race. And, he's just a horse whose 3 most recent starts have all come sprinting 6.5 furlongs down at Santa Anita. 2 of those races down the hill. One of them, the straightaway 6.5. And he was okay in all of those races. He didn't win any of them. He ran fine in all 3 of those races, second in 2 of those. He has been effective going longer distances in the past. Last November at Del Mar in the Grade 2 Seabiscuit, he's beaten less than a length for everything in that race with a 95 Beyer speed figure. He was a big price that day, and he got a little lucky as far as the trip went in that spot, but he still ran the race that he ran. And if it's, if he can come back with an effort like that in this spot, I suppose he could be, around at the end of the race. I didn't love him in here, but it'll probably be a fair price if you're on to him. The number 3 is Harmon. This is another horse who's been, spending all of his time up here at Golden Gate, most of it on the synthetic track up here, but he is 1 for 6 on turf, and that one turf win did come in his most recent start. It was an allowance race going this distance on this turf course, and he just got absolutely loose on the lead, took no pressure at all up there and wired the field with a 90 Beyer speed figure. I suspect it's going to be a lot harder for him to beat a field like this one. Number 4 is Vanzi. He's your morning line favorite. There's plenty to recommend this horse. He's actually been a good horse right from the start. He was good on dirt as a younger horse. He won 2 stakes races on synthetic early in his career, so you know that he could handle that surface. He came back as a 3-year-old, third in the Kent, became a stakes winner in the Jersey Derby at Monmouth Park. So he's now a stakes winner on synthetic and on turf. He's also a winner on the main track. He's just a very versatile horse. And he's made 2 starts so far this year, and I think he's run pretty well in both of them. They started him back in the Clocker's Corner, going 6 furlongs in January, a race where the closers just had no chance. This horse was back off the pace behind a wire-to-wire winner, and Vanzi couldn't make any impact. A couple of months later, they came back, stretched him out to the 1-turn mile, and he ran, very well, winning an allowance race. He sat in behind the horse that was cutting the pace all the way. He got clear around the turn, and he gunned that horse down at the end. We're going to take a look at the replay of that race a little bit later. Vanzi was the horse that won it. Ekrivan was also back in this field, wound up finishing third, and we'll look at that race a little bit later. But Vanzi, he earned that win. He ran very well in that race, and he's a major player back in this spot on Saturday. Number 5 is Jimmy Blue Jeans, another sort of local horse at a bigger price in this race. And we'll just see what he's going to be able to do here. He's very lightly raced. He's 5 for 10 in his career. A lot of his form is on the synthetic track, but they ran this horse on turf 4 times last year, and he won 3 of those. The first 3 turf races of his career, he won all of them, including the Snow Chief Stakes against fellow Calbreds down at Santa Anita Park. They tried him up in class once last year. His final start as a 3-year-old came in the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby, and he just got absolutely buried in that field. He was no match for the better horses on that day. He started off the layoff now. He won his most recent start on the Tapeta surface up here at Golden Gate, a race where, once again, he just got absolutely loose on the lead. He took no pressure. He wired the field with a 90 Beyer. A good performance from him. But the more I looked at that race, the more I figured one of the horses that finished behind him, Tom Surprise, is also back in here. I feel like I'd rather have Tom Surprise back in the Golden Gate Mile, but that doesn't mean that Jimmy Blue Jeans can't improve on turf, because he does have turf form as a 3-year-old. Number 6 is Evening Sun. He's, again, one of these Southern California shippers coming up here. Both him and Tiz Plus exiting an allowance race going a mile at Santa Anita back on March 11th. We're going to take a look at the replay of that race right now. And I think both of these horses actually ran well in here. It's Evening Sun who is going to get the job done in this race. But I think it's just worth pointing out that Tiz Plus, who you'll see come down to the wire in a photo with Evening Sun in this race. Tiz Plus made a very solid pace in this race. They were moving right along on the lead, and Evening Sun just sat back, rated in a really nice trip, came clear at the top of the stretch, and Mike Smith set this horse down. He comes with a really game finish. He's going to close down Tiz Plus at the end of this race to get the job done, and it's a new Beyer top for Evening Sun. Just a good performance for this horse to prevail again. This is a horse who was imported from Europe last summer for trainer Jeff Mullins. They sprinted him first time off the layoff over here, and then after that, he won 2 races in a row. Once they stretched him out, his next 2 starts both came going 9 furlongs, and he had to lead in the stretch both times, and he just couldn't hold on at the end. Maybe that distance a little too far for him. Cut him back to the mile last time. He got back to the winner's circle. Good performance from him. I think he can win this race. Tiz Plus, I think, in a lot of ways ran every bit as well as Evening Sun did in that allowance race that we just looked at. And he's a horse that you can make a case for, especially if you feel like they're going to give him a little bit of a different ride this time. And as I mentioned in the open, Pace Projector feels like he's going to be on the lead at the pace call. He doesn't have to be. This is a horse who has been very effective sitting off of other horses in the early stages of his races. So I feel like he could pull a little bit of a different trip here. And that could certainly make it, even closer, or perhaps even turn the tables on Evening Sun. I don't know if it gives him the advantage over some of the other horses in this race, but I think a reasonable case could be made for Tiz Plus. And here the 8 is Delaware. Ex-Chad Brown runner, ex-Juddmonte runner, a horse who went through the sale late last year. His last 4 starts have been for these new connections. He's 0 for 4 for the new connections. They've run him in some tough spots. All I can say about Delaware is I've never been a real big fan of his. I do think he ran a couple of really good races last year for Chad Brown, including the Grade 3 Forbidden Apple, where he earned a triple-digit buyer and just got beat by less than a length in a race that didn't set up great for him. Sort of dominated on the lead-up at Saratoga. He ran well in that race. I'm just not a big fan overall. I suppose the positive for Delaware is he does have races that would make him tough in here, and because he's no longer in the Chad Brown barn, he doesn't have those higher profile connections. He's going to be a price in this race. If you like him, you could certainly bet him, and any pace that develops in front of this horse just helps his chances. Number 9, Camino del Paraiso. This horse can win. I feel like he's actually one of the more interesting, bigger prices in this race because he just has, overall, he just has, really solid turf form. His most recent start, they cut him back to the mile at Turf Paradise, and he made a run into that race before he flattened out a little bit late. Maybe his most recent 3 or 4 races aren't his best, but he's got back races that would give him a real chance in here. And it's also interesting to note that the last 3 times that this horse ran on turf at Golden Gate, he won all of those races. They're all stakes races, and he won every one of those the last 3 times he ran on turf at Golden Gate Field. So that's a positive for this horse, and he's a fair price on the morning line. Number 10 is Nolde. Hard to say what you're going to get for this horse. He's off of a trainer change here and, returning from the old 882-day layoff. We haven't seen this horse since November of 2019. He's missed a ton of time. He started out with a lot of potential. We haven't seen him in a very long time. I guess it's a pretty confident placing for the new connections here to run him back in the San Francisco Mile off such a long layoff. I'll take a wait-and-see approach for him, but there was a time when it seemed like he was going to turn out to be pretty good. Restrained Vengeance is number 11, a 10-time winner. Again, this is a horse who 2 starts back finished a pretty good third in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile on dirt, but he also has plenty of turf form to recommend him. They've run him in this race, as a matter of fact, in the last 2 years. Back in 2020, he was actually the favorite in this race, and he wound up finishing 4th. It came back with him last year. He wound up finishing 3rd from way out of it, made up a lot of ground through the stretch, but it was way too late for him. And then, a couple starts after that, he won a Grade 3 going a mile down at Santa Anita. He's good on turf. He's good on dirt. He's good on synthetic. The kind of horse that you can just sort of do anything you want with him. I just sort of felt like with the good Breeders' Cup race showing and the overall solid form and fast figures, I felt like he would take some money in here. And I don't know how short a price I would want on Restrained Vengeance, but he could win this race for sure. Tom Surprise is the 12. He was the local horse that I was most interested in here. Very little turf racing throughout this horse's career. Only, as a matter of fact, 4 turf starts, but only 2 turf routes in his entire career. The first of those last summer at Del Mar going the mile, he got beat a nose. The second of those, his most recent start, and we'll take a look at the replay of that race right now. Back to turf for the first time in almost a year for this horse in this race. And he just, steamrolls this field through the stretch. The pace was pretty solid. The field got stretched out a little bit up the backstretch, and Tom Surprise just sat back off it. He got himself into Ranger on the second turn. You can see through the stretch what he does here. Just powering down the outside, easily taking over, much best at the end. I thought this was a good performance for Tom Surprise, even with the good setup factored in. And I just, really appreciate the fact that this is a horse who was claimed for $20,000 back in November, and this new trainer's done a great job with this horse. He's won a couple of races on synthetic with solid figures. He came back and he won on turf last time with another solid figure. This is a much tougher race, obviously, a big step up in class. I think he deserves a shot, and if he catches some pace in front of him here, I'll expect him to run at the end at a price. Number 13, Get Her Number. A little bit of a wild card in here. He's won twice on turf in his career. They're both sprints. He won his career debut going 5 furlongs as a 2-year-old back in 2020. He won his most recent start going 6.5 furlongs. First start for this trainer here, 89 Beyer speed figure, winning that day. He looked fine. I thought winning that race off of a good trip. This horse is a Grade 1 winner on dirt as a 2-year-old. He ran in the Rebel and the Arkansas Derby last year as a 3-year-old. Those races didn't quite work out for him, but he didn't run terribly in the Arkansas Derby. And then, he really never got a campaign together after that. Obviously, something went wrong with him. So he's back now. He won his most recent start. He's going to stretch out a little bit for this race, which isn't supposed to be a problem. And he's just so lightly raced that, to me, he's just a real wild card in here. I would want a big price if I was going to bet him, but maybe you'll get a big price on him. The 14 is Ekrivon, a horse who we talked about a little bit earlier. This is a horse who has really good form over in France. He's a multiple Group 3 winner over there. They spent a lot of time with this horse. They've run him in several really, really good races over there. So obviously they thought a lot of him, as prior connections did. And they've spent a lot of time going in longer distance races over there, which I'm not really sure helps this horse. He ran fine in several of those races against really, really good horses, but they finally cut him back last June. They cut him back for a Group 3 race. He won that pretty impressively from off the pace, and then his next two starts, he just got in really, really tough. First start off the layoff, first start for Richard Mandela over here last month going to Mile City, and this is the replay I wanted to take a look at because Vanzy's also in here, and Vanzy's going to win this race. Vanzy set a nice trip on the rail behind the horse who winds up finishing second, Master of Foxhounds, who cut the pace. Vanzy makes a nice run and guns this horse down at the end. I also thought Ecrivan made a nice run into this race too. The pace was not fast. They rated Ecrivan back in last all the way around into the stretch of this race. And then I thought this horse finished very well. He's only going to manage to get up for third here at the end. But I thought all in all it was a pretty good starting off point and maybe just a prep for his first start over here, and now they ship him up here to run him in a Grade 3 race, and I think those things are all positives. Obviously, post 14, and I feel like this is no bargain, so he's going to have to work out a trip from out there, but this is the horse that I like in the race. If he's anywhere around that 9-2 morning line, that's who I'm taking in here. You can put the picks up there now. I took Ecrivan, number 14, on top, 14, 4, 12, and 6 for me, but this is a very, very interesting race on Saturday up at Golden Gate Fields. It's the Grade 3 San Francisco Mile. It's race number 9, the approximate post time, 8:15 up there at 8:15 local time here on the East Coast, 5:15 out at the Pacific time out there in California. But either way, this is a really good race, race number 9, the San Francisco Mile. Good luck.